Welcome back to Sir Aldred of Gallowmere, Part 4, Disaster. The storm had broken over Gallowmere like a beast loosed from its chains. Rain lashed the rooftops, turning the dirt roads into a churning mess of mud and filth. The wind howled through the village, rattling shutters and snuffing out torches. The sky, thick with bruised clouds, held neither moon nor stars, only an oppressive darkness swallowing the world whole. Aldred ran. His breath tore through his lungs, each step sinking into the mire beneath his boots. The dagger Adric had shown him, the death blade, weighed heavy in his grip. The knowledge of its purpose bore down on him like an iron yoke. One must die. Edric had begged him to act, had pleaded. Kill me, Aldred. End it now before the Wraith takes thee, before it takes all of Gallowmere. But Aldred had hesitated. And in that moment of weakness, the shadows had come. The crypt had erupted in writhing tendrils of darkness, the air thick with the stench of decay. Aldred had barely escaped, the echoes of Eadric's screams chasing him into the storm. Now he fled, not from duty, not from cowardice, but from the knowledge that something was following him. Something was hunting him. Aldred's boots splashed through the narrow alleyway behind the blacksmith's forge. The scent of wet ash filled his nostrils, mingling with the pungent rot of spoiled grain. He braced himself against the side of the building, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Silence, no pursuit, no whispering voice slithering through the rain. Perhaps a hand clamped down on his shoulder. Aldred spun, dagger raised, but the face he saw was not one of shadowed horror. It was Esmond. The old priest's robes were drenched, his wrinkled face streaked with rain and sweat, his eyes, wild with desperation, locked onto Aldred's. "Thou must come." Aldred swallowed hard. "Esmond, no time." The old man's grip tightened, his nails biting into Aldred's arm. "They hath taken the girl." Aldred stilled. "Whom dost thou mean?" he asked, though in his heart he already knew the answer. Esmond's face crumpled. "Thy sister." The bell tower loomed against the storm-dark sky. Its silhouette was jagged, a broken tooth in the mouth of a dead god. Lightning flared behind it, throwing twisted shadows across the village square. Aldred's pulse pounded in his ears. Eloan. He had not seen her since the trial, since his name had been dragged through the dirt and trampled beneath the boots of those he once called kin. She had refused to watch, had fled their home in tears. And now the Wraith had her. Esmond led him through the ruined chapel, their footsteps echoing across the waterlogged stone. The pews lay in splinters, the altar defiled with dark symbols carved deep into the wood. The air smelled of burnt tallow and something fouler, something old. The priest stopped at the base of the tower's spiral stairs, his hands trembling as he pointed upward. "She is there," he whispered. Aldred did not wait. He climbed. Each step sent a shudder through the ancient wood, the boards creaking beneath his weight. The air grew colder, thick with the scent of damp and rot. The wind shrieked through the cracks in the stone, a thousand voices whispering in a tongue he did not understand. Then he reached the top. The bell chamber was wrong. Rain poured in through the shattered windows, pooling in uneven puddles across the stone floor. The great bell hung motionless, though the wind raged around it, and in the centre Eloan knelt upon the altar. Her hair hung in sodden strands around her pale face. Her wrists were bound in black iron, her dress torn at the hem. She did not move, did not even breathe. Aldred's stomach twisted. "Eloan," he breathed, stepping forward. She lifted her head, and he saw her eyes. No longer the warm green he remembered, but black, bottomless. The Wraith had taken her. Aldred's grip tightened on the dagger. The wind howled, and the shadows at the edges of the chamber quivered. The Wraith was here, watching, waiting. "Eloan," he tried again, softer. "If thou canst hear me." Her lips parted. Her voice, his sister's voice, came out wrong. "Wouldst thou spill my blood, brother?" Aldred's breath caught. The dagger trembled in his grip. One must die. He had fled Adric's fate, had refused to play the Wraith's game. But now it had taken Eloan instead. Had he doomed her by his own hesitation? Her head tilted. and the voice that spoke was no longer hers. Choose, Aldred, thy life or hers. The wind died, the rain ceased. Time froze, Aldred's chest heaved. His blade was poised, ready, but his arms would not move. His own blood, the only family he had left. She stared at him through those blackened eyes, silent, waiting. The mere wraith coiled behind her, its form shifting, twisting, an ever-hungry thing. It fed upon bargains, upon hesitation, upon suffering. Aldred gritted his teeth. His choices had led him here, his failures, his sins. Lightning cracked, illuminating the dagger in his grip. A choice had to be made. And Aldred chose. The blade hovered in Aldred's grip, slick with sweat. His breath came in ragged gasps, the weight of the moment pressing upon him like a noose tightening around his throat. The mire wraith loomed, an unfathomable shadow coiled behind his sister's frail form, its shifting body rippling like black water. Choose, Aldred, the wraith whispered, its voice sliding through the chamber like oil. Thy life or hers. Eloan knelt before him, her wrists still bound in those iron shackles, her once vibrant green eyes swallowed whole by black voids. Did not tremble, did not weep. She simply watched him, waiting. Thunder cracked overhead, and for the briefest moment, Aldred glimpsed his own reflection in the rain-slicked floor. A man hollowed by failure, a knight stripped of his honor, a brother poised to spill his own kin's blood. He had come here to put an end to this. He had sought the truth, hoping to salvage what remained of his tarnished name. But the truth had led him here, to this moment of unbearable choice. Well, the wraith crooned, its voice curling through his ears, filling every crevice of his mind. Does thy blade thirst? Does thy honor demand sacrifice? Aldred clenched his teeth, the dagger trembling in his grip. One must die. Edric had begged him to act, had pleaded for death to break the wraith's hold before it was too late. And Aldred had hesitated, had turned away, had run. Now that hesitation had delivered his sister into the creature's grasp. Let her go. His voice came out hoarse, shaking beneath the weight of the storm that raged within him. The wraith laughed, a sound like rusted chains dragging across stone. "Oh, foolish knight," it crooned, "thou still thinkst this a battle of swords. There is no rescue, no triumph. There is only the debt unpaid." Aldred's fingers curled around the hilt of the dagger, his jaw set. "Thou refusest still." The wraith shifted, its tendrils of shadow tightening around Eloan's throat. She gasped, her lips parting, but no breath escaped. No sound, only the empty pull of air that would not come. Aldred lunged. The wraith recoiled, but it did not retreat. Instead, the shadows twisted, folding inward, drawing Eloan's body against the altar with a sickening snap. "Thy indecision hath already damned thee, Aldred of Gallowmere." The dagger struck stone. Eloan collapsed, her body convulsing, limbs twitching like a dying insect. Aldred scrambled toward her, his hands finding her shoulders, shaking her gently. "Eloan, look at me," he breathed, her lips parted. And for the briefest, most harrowing moment, she smiled. Not the smile of his sister, not the warm, teasing expression he had known since childhood, but something else, something that was not her at all. "Ah, brother mine," she whispered, her voice slow, thick with something alien. Aldred stilled. Eloan's body went rigid, her head snapping to the side in a way that no mortal bones should bend. Her shoulders shuddered, the breath in her throat rattling like wind through dead trees. And then her mouth opened too wide, too wide. The blackness within her eyes spread, seeping like ink across her skin, her very veins turning to dark rivers beneath her flesh. Her fingers curled, nails raking against the stone. Aldred's stomach twisted. He had seen death before. He had held men in their final moments, watched the light leave their eyes as steel met flesh. But this was no death, he understood. The wraith's laughter grew, the storm outside raging in answer. "Thou didst wait too long, Aldred," it purred. "Now she is mine." Aldred staggered back, the dagger clutched uselessly in his grip. This was his fault. He had failed her, failed them all. "Eloan," he tried again, though his voice was little more than a whisper. Her head jerked toward him, her lips parting. A second voice spoke beneath her own, a voice not human. "Brother mine," it rasped, the words a perversion of affection, a mockery of love. Her body lurched forward. Aldred's blood ran cold. He did not think, did not hesitate. He ran. The storm tore through Gallowmere with merciless fury. Aldred stumbled through the village square, his heart hammering against his ribs. The dagger was still clutched in his hand, his fingers numb around its hilt. The Wraith had taken her. There was no saving her now. He had seen it in those blackened eyes, in the way her voice split in two. Elowen was gone, and yet brother mine. The words slithered through the rain, curling against his spine. He froze. The wind howled through the streets, rattling doors on their hinges. A distant bell tolled, the sound warped and broken. Aldred turned. She was there, standing in the center of the square, her bare feet sinking into the mud. Her dress was still tattered, her wrists still bound in iron, yet she did not shiver, did not breathe. The black veins in her skin pulsed. "Brother mine." Her lips curled into that wrong smile. Aldred's throat went dry. The villagers would see. They would know. Elowen was gone, and in her place stood something else. Something wearing her skin. The wraith had bound itself to her, had woven its darkness into her very being. And now it was walking toward him, slow, measured, unstoppable. Aldred took a step back, then another. He could not stay here. If the villagers saw her like this, if they saw him with her, they would never believe him. His name was already ruined, his honor stripped bare. If they believed he had done this, Aldred turned and ran. Not to flee, not to abandon her, but because he knew what he had to do. There was only one way to sever a bargain once it had been made. One way to break the Wraith's hold. The dagger in his grip felt heavier than ever. A death was required. And Aldred knew whose blood would be spilled next. Aldred's breath came in ragged gasps, his boots slamming against the wet cobblestones as he fled through the twisting alleys of Gallowmere. The rain fell in torrents, plastering his hair to his skull, soaking through his tunic, but he hardly noticed. Behind him, the thing wearing Elowen's skin was following. Not running, not chasing, just walking with that same slow, deliberate pace, as though it had all the time in the world. "Brother mine." The voice curled around the corners of the alley, slipping between the cracks in the stones, whispering from the darkness itself. Aldred gritted his teeth, forcing his legs to move faster. He had to reach the church. The old abbey stood at the edge of the village, its bell tower rising stark and solemn against the storm-lit sky. It was the only place left, the only place where the wraith's power might weaken. The dagger burned in his grip, the weight of it pressing heavy against his palm. He knew what must be done, had known it since the moment he saw Elowen's blackened veins pulse with unnatural life. But knowing and doing were two different things. The cobbled path twisted, curving sharply toward the main road. Aldred skidded, nearly losing his footing. And that was when he saw them, the villagers. A dozen or more, huddled beneath the overhanging eaves of the tavern and the baker's shop, their faces white with fear, their eyes darting toward the approaching figure in the square. They had seen, they had heard. Elowen, if she could still be called that, stood in the center of the street, her thin, mud-streaked arms dangling at her sides, her head tilting just slightly, like a bird considering its prey. A ripple of unease passed through the crowd. And then witchcraft! The cry came from somewhere in the throng, but it spread like wildfire. The devil's work. She's cursed. Kill her. Burn it out of her. The murmurs grew, turning to shouts, to raw fury and terror. Aldred's stomach twisted. No, wait. He raised his arms, stepping forward. But the villagers did not listen. Several men had already broken away from the crowd, clutching torches and pitchforks. They thought they were protecting their own. But they did not understand. They could not. "Listen to me." Aldred's voice cracked as he thrust himself into their path. "She is not," but Elowen moved first. Faster than she should have been able to. Faster than anything human. One moment she stood in the rain, a wraith wrapped in the guise of a girl. The next, she was upon them. Her fingers curled around the throat of the nearest man, a blacksmith named Orwin, lifting him as though he weighed nothing at all. His torch tumbled from his grasp, hissing into the rain-slicked mud. A horrible crack filled the air as his neck snapped sideways. The crowd screamed. Panic took hold. Villagers scattered in every direction, their fear turning to blind, animal terror. Aldred lunged, but his feet slid on the wet stones, sending him crashing to his knees. "No," he roared. "No, no, stop!" But it was too late. Eloan, no, the thing inside her, turned toward him. The black veins in her skin writhed, shifting like living tendrils. Her eyes, voids upon voids, locked onto his. "Brother mine," she murmured. Aldred's pulse thundered in his skull. He could not let this continue. If the Wraith was fully unleashed, there would be nothing left of Eloan to save. He forced himself upright, fingers clenching around the dagger's hilt. Eloan! He did not know if she could still hear him. If she was still inside that thing, buried somewhere beneath the Wraith's grip. But he had to try. Thou must fight it. For a moment, just a heartbeat. Something flickered across her expression. A hesitation, a shadow of something human. And then the bell tolled. A deep, mournful sound rolling through the storm-heavy air. Eloan flinched. Aldred saw his opening. He moved. His feet struck the ground, propelling him forward with every ounce of strength left in his battered body. The dagger rose, its tip gleaming in the fractured light of the torches. For a single breath time held still, the world suspended between one fate and another. And then Aldred plunged the blade into her chest. Eloan's eyes widened. Her lips parted in a soundless gasp. The Wraith's scream shattered the night. A deafening, piercing wail that rippled through the very fabric of reality. Blackness poured from the wound, writhing tendrils of shadow thrashing as though caught in an unseen current. Aldred's hands shook, his fingers still wrapped around the dagger's hilt, driving it deeper. "No," the Wraith hissed, its voice losing its human shape. "No, this is not," the bell tolled again. And this time the Wraith unraveled. Its form twisted, coiling upon itself, 1,000 shrieking voices spiraling into a singular point of oblivion. Aldred stumbled back, gasping for air as the last of the blackness bled from Eloan's body. And then silence. The storm had broken. The rain still fell, but the world was hushed. The hush of something vast and terrible passing away. Eloan crumpled. Aldred caught her, his arms wrapping around her limp frame. Her breath was shallow, her pulse weak. But she was alive. The dagger lay still in her chest, its blade now blackened, the silver runes along its surface burned away. The villagers watched from a distance, their faces a mixture of terror and awe. Aldred lifted his head. There was no misunderstanding now. They had seen what he had done, what he'd become. The Knight of Gallowmere had just slain his own sister before the eyes of his people. The reputation he had fought so desperately to restore was now dust. Aldred did not care. He pulled Eloan closer, his fingers brushing against her cheek. She was breathing. That was enough. For now, that was enough. The end of Sir Aldred of Gallowmere, Part 4. Please like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you so much.
Sir Aldred of Gallowmere. What tales we shall again inquire. We follow tune to man's desire.